In today's episode, we explore a heartbreaking and intricate story. It centers on a family torn apart by a murder fueled by love, obsession, and betrayal. This tragic event was driven by concealed desires and deep-seated secrets. G.C. Harris was a 45-year-old man from Albany, New York, who worked for the state government. He was well-liked for his friendly nature and was deeply devoted to his family. G.C. was well regarded at work for being reliable and diligent. He frequently assisted others and was highly involved in his community. Despite his positive traits, G.C. faced his own set of challenges in life. G.C. was blind, having lost his sight in his early 20s because of retinitis pigmentosa, a genetic condition that affects the eyes. Despite this, he didn't let his blindness stop him. He used a cane to get around and lived a very independent life. G.C. wanted to show people that a disability shouldn't limit what you can achieve. He lived with his wife, Jessica Turner Harris, and they had been happily married for more than 15 years. Jessica was a successful wedding planner and also organized community events. They had a 10-year-old son named Pikachu and were undergoing IVF in hopes of having another child. G.C. cherished the time he spent with his family. He often took his family to Washington Park and the Albany Pine Bush Preserve for picnics and nature walks. In the days before his death, G.C. was excited about a new project at work. He had recently been promoted and was eager to begin his new role. He was also planning a family vacation to Disney World in Florida. G.C. had bought new luggage from Macy's and was excitedly discussing the trip with his family. He cherished time with his son and wanted to make unforgettable memories with him. In October 2014, G.C.'s life appeared ideal. He had a loving family, a successful career, and exciting plans for the future. However, beneath this happy surface, trouble was starting to brew. G.C. didn't know about the hidden problems and secrets that were about to disrupt his life. His world, full of hopes and dreams, was about to be abruptly and tragically ended. On October 14, 2014, it was a cold Tuesday morning in Albany, New York. Around 8:30 a.m., Kevin Brown, a co-worker of G.C. Harris, arrived at the New York State Office building. Kevin had come in early to talk with G.C. about a project they were working on for the state government. He noticed that G.C.'s office door was slightly ajar, which was unusual for him. Kevin knocked on the door but didn't get an answer. Worried, he pushed the door open and was shocked by what he saw. G.C. was lying on the floor, covered in blood. His body had multiple stab wounds and his eyes were missing. A blood-stained letter opener was beside him. The scene was horrifying and grotesque, unlike anything Kevin had ever encountered. Kevin was overwhelmed with panic and fear. His hands shook as he grabbed his phone to call 911. His voice wavered as he told the operator what he had discovered. Kevin was terrified and struggled to accept what he was seeing. He knew he had to remain calm and provide the police with all the necessary details. The Albany Police Department arrived at the scene within minutes. The first officers on the scene quickly secured the area and requested additional help. Still in shock, Kevin sat in a nearby chair while the officers started their investigation. He did his best to answer their questions, but his mind was racing. He couldn't comprehend who could commit such a horrific act against G.C., a man who was liked by everyone. News of the murder spread quickly through the community, leaving people shocked and heartbroken over the loss of G.C., a man known for his kindness and dedication. The Albany Times-Union and local TV stations reported on the murder. G.C.'s death deeply affected everyone who knew him. The shocking and brutal nature of the crime unsettled the community, and people started to question who could be behind such a terrible act. On October 14, 2014, the Albany Police Department swiftly responded to the 911 call about G.C. Harris murder. Patrol officers were the first to arrive at the New York State Office building where G.C.'s body was discovered. They secured the scene to preserve any evidence. They quickly called for additional help. Detectives Natalie Lawson and Paul Johnson arrived shortly after. Detective Lawson was known for her thorough and meticulous investigation style, while Detective Johnson was praised for his keen intuition and skill in reading crime scenes. As they walked into G.C.'s office, they were confronted with a gruesome scene. Blood stained the floor, walls, and desk. Papers were strewn about, and the letter opener, which was clearly the weapon used, lay close by, coated in blood. The violence of the crime was startling. Detective Lawson started taking photos of the scene while Detective Johnson inspected the body. JC had been stabbed numerous times and his eyes had been removed, suggesting a crime fueled by deep rage and betrayal. It was clear that this was not a random act of violence but a deliberate attack. The detectives carefully gathered evidence, collecting blood samples, fingerprints from the door and desk, and any other physical evidence that could help identify the K. They also seized J.C.'s phone and computer to search for clues about his recent activities and contacts. Forensic experts arrived to help with the investigation. They employed tools like luminol to reveal any hidden wood stains and used special cameras to capture detailed images of the crime scene. The experts also analyzed the letter opener for any DNA or fingerprints that might identify the K. Meanwhile, detectives Lawson and Johnson interviewed Kevin Brown, who had found the body. Still in shock, Kevin did his best to offer any information that might be helpful. He described JC as a well-regarded and respected colleague with no known enemies at work. The detectives also interviewed J.C.'s other co-workers and friends, discovering that he had recently been promoted and was planning a family vacation. Everyone described JC as a kind and dedicated person, making the crime even more perplexing. Detectives Lawson and Johnson knew they had to move quickly to determine who had both the motive and the opportunity to kill JC. The urgency to solve the case and deliver justice for JC and his mourning family was intense. The horrific crime scene offered numerous clues, but uncovering the truth behind the brutal murder would require meticulous analysis and sharp investigative skills. Jessica Turner Harris, J.C.'s 43-year-old wife and a prominent wedding planner in Albany, was the first suspect in the investigation. Jessica was successful and frequently organized large community events. Known for her sociable and friendly demeanor, she appeared to have a happy marriage with JC. However, she harbored concerns about his fidelity. Jessica had heard rumors about a possible affair involving JC and had observed changes in his behavior, which fueled her suspicions. Despite her deep love for her family, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. This led the police to consider her a potential suspect. Detectives Natalie Lawson and Paul Johnson brought Jessica in for questioning. She remained calm, but was visibly upset about her husband's brutal murder. The detectives questioned Jessica about her relationship with JC and any recent changes in his behavior. Jessica admitted she had suspected JC of having an affair but firmly denied any involvement in his DATE. She explained that on the night of the murder, she was at home with their son Pikachu. Jessica detailed their evening, explaining they had dinner, watched the movie Eyes Wide Shut, and then went to bed. The detectives verified her alibi by speaking with her son and checking phone records. Everything appeared to corroborate her account. Despite her composed appearance, Jessica's grief was apparent. She was struggling to come to terms with the brutal loss of her husband and was bewildered by the violence of his DATE. The detectives took note of her emotional state and continued to seek more information. During the investigation, the police searched Jessica's belongings and found no direct evidence linking her to the crime. They also reviewed her financial records, which showed no signs of wrongdoing. Jessica's friends and colleagues described her as a devoted wife and mother, which further supported her claim of innocence. Despite the lack of direct evidence, the detectives couldn't overlook Jessica's knowledge of J.C.'s possible affair. They considered whether this knowledge might have motivated her to commit the crime. They questioned her about her feelings toward JC and whether she had ever confronted him about the rumors. Jessica admitted she had confronted JC about the rumors, but he had denied any wrongdoing. Her cooperation and the absence of concrete evidence against her led the detectives to explore other suspects. While she remained a person of interest, the focus shifted to others who might have had a motive. Jessica's story added complexity to the case, but without solid evidence, the detectives knew they had to continue searching for the real murderer. The investigation was ongoing as the detectives sought more answers. The second suspect was Megan Turner, Jessica's 28-year-old younger sister, who worked as a freelance graphic designer in Albany. Megan was outgoing and ambitious, often seeking validation and affection from older men. She was also known by another name, Dulce Merdisha, which was her stage name as an exotic dancer at a local club. This aspect of her life was not widely known to her family and friends. Megan had a history of minor criminal behavior, including shoplifting and a DUI in her early 20s. This raised concerns for the detectives, who questioned whether her lifestyle might be linked to J.C.'s murder. Megan frequently stayed overnight at Jessica and J.C.'s home, claiming to help Jessica with website design for her clients. However, it became evident that she had a closer relationship with J.C. than initially realized. Detectives Natalie Lawson and Paul Johnson brought Megan in for questioning. She appeared nervous but was cooperative. They asked her about her relationship with J.C. and her activities on the night of the murder. Megan admitted she was close to J.C. and often confided in him. She claimed to have been at home on the night of the murder, working on a graphic design project for a local business. However, her alibi was weak as she had no one to confirm her whereabouts. The detectives probed further into her work as Dulce Merdisha and her criminal past. Megan grew defensive but continued to assert her innocence. She maintained that she had no involvement in J.C.'s death and that their relationship was strictly platonic. The detectives uncovered evidence that Megan had been at J.C.'s office the day before the murder, allegedly to discuss a project with him behind closed doors. They also found text messages between Megan and J.C. that were suggestive of a more intimate relationship. The messages revealed Megan expressing sexual attraction toward J.C., while he appeared to be trying to distance himself. Despite the evidence suggesting a possible motive, Megan continued to deny any involvement. She admitted to feeling hurt by J.C.'s attempts to end their relationship but insisted she would never harm him. The detectives observed her emotional responses and erratic behavior during the interrogation. The police searched Megan's apartment and found items related to her stage persona, but nothing directly linked her to the murder. They continued to collect evidence and interview people who knew Megan, including her colleagues at the graphic design firm and staff at the club where she performed. Despite the lack of direct evidence, Megan remained a key suspect due to her close relationship with J.C., her criminal history, and her emotional instability. Without solid evidence, the detectives understood they had to continue their search. The truth about J.C.'s murder remained elusive, and the investigation was still ongoing. The third suspect was Kevin Brown, a colleague of J.C. Harris. Kevin, 40, worked in the same New York State office as J.C. He had a reputation for a short temper and had lodged multiple complaints about J.C.'s work style and methods. Kevin had been overlooked for a promotion that J.C. received, which had created tension between them. Additionally, Kevin was the one who found J.C.'s body and was the last person to see him alive. Detectives Natalie Lawson and Paul Johnson brought Kevin in for questioning. Kevin, tall and with a gruff demeanor, appeared defensive right from the beginning. The detectives asked him about his relationship with J.C. and how he felt about being passed over for the promotion. Kevin admitted to feeling frustrated but insisted he had no reason to harm J.C. He said that on the night of the murder, he was at home watching a football game between the New York Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles. He gave the names of friends who could verify his alibi. The detectives contacted these friends, who confirmed Kevin's account. Despite the confirmation of his alibi, the detectives remained skeptical and chose to investigate further. Kevin had a history of workplace conflicts, including several arguments with colleagues and a formal warning for his behavior. The detectives speculated that Kevin's anger toward J.C. might have escalated into violence. They reviewed his past and discovered a record of minor offenses, including a bar fight from a few years earlier. The police then searched Kevin's apartment for any evidence that might connect him to the murder. They found several knives in Kevin's apartment, but none matched the letter opener used in the crime. They also reviewed his computer and phone records. While Kevin had sent a few angry emails to J.C., in the past, there were no messages that directly threatened him. During the interrogation, Kevin's responses were short and defensive. He denied any involvement in J.C.'s murder and claimed he had moved past the promotion issue. The detectives carefully observed his body language and tone for any signs of deceit. Kevin's frustration was apparent, but there was no concrete evidence linking him to the crime. The detectives kept a close watch on Kevin's activities and interviewed his co-workers, who had mixed opinions about him. Some described Kevin as hardworking but temperamental, while others viewed him as a potential threat due to his frequent outbursts. Despite the absence of concrete evidence, Kevin remained a person of interest. The detectives knew they needed to explore every possible lead. they needed more than just suspicions to prove Kevin's involvement. As the investigation advanced, his connection to J.C.'s life and death remained central. On October 18, 2014, 4 days after J.C. Harris' murder, the Albany Police Department received a crucial new piece of evidence. On a chilly, overcast morning, maintenance worker Peter Willis discovered a blood-stained glove in a trash can behind the New York State Office building where J.C. worked. He promptly reported the find to the police. Detectives Natalie Lawson and Paul Johnson arrived at the scene swiftly. The detectives carefully collected the glove and sent it to the forensic lab for analysis, hoping it would offer a crucial breakthrough. Later that afternoon, Dr. Amelia Chong Yang and her forensic team began examining the glove. Dr. Amelia Chong Yang and her team discovered traces of J.C.'s blood on the glove, along with DNA that did not belong to him. This new DNA sample was critical, as it could help identify the murderer. Meanwhile, the detectives returned to the crime scene to search for any overlooked evidence, re-examining the office and surrounding areas with a fresh perspective. Using advanced forensic tools like luminol, the detectives found faint blood traces leading from J.C.'s office to the back exit of the building. This indicated that the murderer might have used that exit and possibly discarded the glove during their escape. The police then reviewed security footage from nearby cameras for further clues. The detectives focused on the back exit, hoping to identify anyone who had used it around the time of the murder. After hours of reviewing the footage, they spotted a shadowy figure leaving the building late at night, wearing a hoodie and gloves. Though the footage was grainy, it provided a potential lead. Back at the lab, Dr. Chong Yang compared the DNA from the glove to the samples from the suspects. The results showed a match with Megan Turner's DNA, marking a significant breakthrough in the investigation. Given Megan's status as a key suspect due to her close relationship with J.C. and her emotional instability, detectives Lawson and Johnson decided to bring her in for further questioning. They confronted her with the new evidence. Megan initially denied any involvement, but as the detectives presented the DNA match, her composure began to falter. She admitted to being at the office that night, but claimed she had no recollection of committing the murder. Megan's erratic behavior and conflicting statements heightened the detectives' suspicions. The new evidence sharply shifted the investigation's focus toward her. The glove, the DNA match, and her presence at J.C.'s office on the night of the murder all suggested her involvement. The detectives knew they were nearing a solution, but needed more information to secure a conviction. With the new evidence, they intensified their investigation, determined to uncover the full truth behind J.C. Harris's tragic death. As the community awaited answers, the detectives worked tirelessly to piece together the final parts of the puzzle. On October 22, 2014, Albany police made a significant breakthrough in the J.C. Harris murder case. Megan Turner, 28, was officially identified as the murderer. Her arrest followed crucial evidence, including a DNA match from a wood-stained glove found near the scene, linking her to the crime. Megan, a freelance graphic designer and exotic dancer known as Dulcimer Disha, was identified as the murderer. A twist in the case revealed that Jessica Turner Harris, J.C.'s wife, had known about the affair between Megan and J.C. for months. Jessica, who had a history of intense rivalry with her sister, had been secretly blackmailing Megan to maintain the relationship. Jessica's aim was to gather enough evidence to ruin Megan's reputation and career, adding a shocking layer to the crime. Detectives Natalie Lawson and Paul Johnson, who had been leading the investigation, received a tip from Jessica and Megan's widowed father about Jessica's involvement. They discovered that Jessica, envious of Megan's appearance, had been using her knowledge of the affair to coerce Megan into continuing the relationship. This revelation was supported by Jessica's text messages and emails, which showed her blackmailing Megan with sexually explicit photos of her and J.C. On the day of Megan's arrest, the weather in Albany was cool and overcast. Detectives Lawson and Johnson arrived at Megan's apartment, located in a modest area near Washington Park. Megan was at home, preparing for her evening shift at the club where she performed as Dulcimer Disha. When the police arrived, she appeared shocked but cooperative and was taken into custody without resistance. The arrest received extensive coverage from local media, including the Albany Times-Union and WNYT News Channel 13. Reports highlighted the new twist in the case, including Jessica's role in manipulating Megan. During interrogation, Megan confessed to killing JC in a fit of rage after he attempted to end their affair. Megan revealed how Jessica's blackmail and manipulation had pushed her to the brink. She detailed the murder, describing how she used a letter opener to stab JC multiple times and left his body in a gruesome display. Megan's confession, combined with the new evidence, provided a clear motive and illustrated the tragic outcome of manipulation, obsession, and betrayal. The police pieced together the full story, revealing how Jessica's indirect influence had driven Megan to commit the crime. Megan Turner was charged with first-degree murder. The arrest and the unraveling of the twisted motivations behind the crime provided a deeper understanding of the case. The investigation uncovered a complex web of deceit that led to J.C. Harris's tragic death. The community and media closely followed the case as the search for justice continued. Megan Turner's trial began on December 1, 2014, at the Albany County Courthouse. The courtroom was filled with reporters and spectators eager to follow the high-profile case. Megan, 28, faced first-degree murder charges for killing J.C. Harris, a case that had captivated local attention. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Becca Cole, renowned for her clear and compelling arguments. Cole presented a compelling case against Megan, highlighting evidence such as Megan's confession, the DNA from the blood-stained glove, and Jessica Turner Harris's blackmail. Cole argued that Megan's actions were driven by obsession and manipulation, detailing how Jessica had used her knowledge of the affair to coerce Megan, adding a significant layer of manipulation to the crime. During the trial, Cole emphasized the brutality of the crime. She described how Megan had viciously attacked J.C. with a letter opener, leaving his body in a gruesome display. The prosecution argued that Megan's violent reaction was a direct result of the emotional manipulation and stress inflicted by Jessica. Megan's defense attorney, Juan Carter, 50, was known for his calm and methodical approach. Carter argued that Megan acted out of intense emotional distress rather than premeditation. He suggested that her mental state, compounded by Jessica's blackmail, led her to commit the murder in a moment of rage. Carter argued that Megan hadn't meant to kill J.C. Her actions were driven by severe emotional distress. Throughout the trial, Megan's family stayed in the courtroom, clearly upset. They hoped for a fair outcome but were deeply troubled by the evidence and the gravity of the charges. J.C.'s family, including his wife Jessica, attended the trial seeking justice and to grasp the full extent of the tragedy. After several hours of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict on December 9, 2014, finding Megan Turner guilty of first-degree murder. The jury's decision was based on the evidence presented, including Megan's confession, the DNA match, and the emotional impact of Jessica's blackmail. On December 15, 2014, Megan was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge's ruling received mixed reactions from the public and the families involved. Some felt the sentence was justified due to the crime's brutality, while others thought it was excessively harsh. J.C.'s family and friends found a sense of closure with the verdict, allowing them to start healing from their loss, knowing that justice had been served. The trial highlighted a tragic tale of obsession and manipulation, underscoring the profound effects of deceit and betrayal. It served as a reminder of the importance of justice and the impact of emotional and psychological manipulation. Following Megan Turner's sentencing on December 15, 2014, the lives of everyone involved in the case were dramatically altered. Megan, 28, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for murdering J.C. Harris. Her trial was widely covered by local media, including the Albany Times-Union and WNYT News Channel 13. In prison, Megan struggled with a challenging adjustment period. Known for her secretive and troubled past, Megan struggled to come to terms with her life sentence. Her family, who had been supportive during the trial, found it difficult to deal with the outcome. They visited her occasionally but were profoundly affected by the gravity of her crime. Jessica Turner Harris, J.C.'s wife, continued to grapple with the fallout from the case. The revelation of her blackmailing Megan sparked a scandal, leading to public scrutiny and criticism for her role in manipulating Megan. Despite her actions being a significant factor in the case, Jessica remained focused on her family and her work as a wedding planner. She aimed to rebuild her life and restore some sense of normalcy for her son, Pikachu. The murder of J.C. Harris and Megan Turner's subsequent arrest and trial had lasting effects on everyone involved. The case underscored the tragic consequences of betrayal and manipulation, emphasizing the need to address mental health and emotional issues. While the community began to move forward, the shocking events in Albany would always be remembered for their profound impact on everyone involved. This concludes our episode of Truthful Crime. The story of J.C. Harris murder serves as a sobering reminder of how love, obsession, and betrayal can intertwine, leading to devastating outcomes. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we delve into another gripping true crime story.